Thank you for listening to this episode of the Our View podcast. On today's episode, I welcome my guests, Micah and Jillian Thomas. Join our conversation as we discuss their family dynamics of raising their daughter who has spina bifida and a family of other siblings who do not have disabilities, and find out what advice they have for parents raising children who have disabilities. So, welcome to the Our View podcast. So, if you could, can you just introduce yourselves and, tell the listeners as little or as much as you would like about who you are and, your story.
Cool. Well, I'll start first. I guess my name is Micah Thomas, and I'm a Montgomery, Alabama native, and I'm a entrepreneur, CEO of a new company called Story More, which has been in the works for the past 3 years. And as part of that, I'm also another hat as a husband and father of 6, actually. And I have the younger 3 with my beautiful wife Jillian here, and I'm a Full Sail alumnus. I know you probably have a few fans who may have gone through there as far as school goes, and we are the proud parents of a daughter who is now 6 years old, named Dinah Faith, who also has spina bifida, and so we're really excited to have the opportunity to share about our experience.
My name is Jillian Thomas. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I homeschool, and I help my husband with his business. And I don't think you mentioned this, but you're a pastor as well.
Right.
So he has a church that we're a part of and do stuff for. And, I'm a Troy University alumnus, and I guess to tell about our combined story, we met August or September of 1997,
Right.
where we met at the Alabama School for the Blind, where I am a graduate. And we got together February of 2009, and we've been together ever since.
That's awesome. Such a great story. So the long story, very short, is I connected with you, Micah, through the great, the great new app of Clubhouse, and just being in different rooms, and you're able to connect. And I love the app because it's real time, and there's no wall like on Facebook or the other apps. It's and you have to use your voice. You literally have to use your voice to speak to people. So I really appreciate that about the app. And so we connected just a few short days ago, and then it was you wrote me and said your daughter story is very similar to mine, and that she has spina bifida, and and you would like to be a guest on the podcast. So, here we are literally within the same week of, meeting each other. So thank you both so much for joining me for this episode.
We're excited and glad to be a part of it. Any conversation that can help bring awareness or just provide another perspective from the story of those who spina bifida is important to us.
So in your introduction, you said that you have a daughter, and I said that's how we connected through the story of me having spina bifida and your daughter having spina bifida. So can you tell the listeners about your daughter's diagnosis and the story of how you found out about her diagnosis and how that has impacted her life and your family dynamic?
I'll let Jill take on with the first of this. It would be unfair if inside and carry Donna Faith. I can fill in whatever crack she leaves out.
I think I was about 20 weeks pregnant, and we went in to do the ultrasound that would initially tell us what gender she was, because we were all about knowing boy or girl, you know, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
a planner. So the I took my two kids that we already had, Andrew and Kennedy, and their godfather, which is our best friend, was with us. So it was kind of like a big deal. And obviously we had bets going on and everything. So we get in there and of course I'm laying up there with all the goo on my stomach and she starts to do the ultrasound. And within maybe 3 or 4 minutes, she was, you know, she told us it was a girl, but she like kept going. Like she was very quiet and she just kept looking and kept looking. And I had done this twice before, so I wasn't a stranger to this. And I was like, um, you already told us it's a girl. What's taking so long? Is everything okay? I'm getting kind of nervous. Like I don't something's not right. And she goes, well, I don't really want to alarm you. And I really need to talk to the doctor first before anything is confirmed, but it looks like there may be some spinal cord issues. And obviously, I was like just stunned, shocked, and absolutely beyond terrified. And
Mm-hmm.
she left and told us to, you know, just wait for the doctor. And the whole time I prayed and I was terrified because I didn't know what to expect. I think my biggest fear was whatever this is, I'm scared it's going to cause me to lose her.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest fear that I had because I was like, you know, as long as she's alive, I can do anything, you know, like just
Right.
as long as she's alive. Um, And when the doctor came in, she told us that she was pretty positive that she had a myelomeningocele on her spinal cord. And she wasn't exactly sure what kind of myelomeningocele we were looking at. So she was going to need to transfer us to specialists in Birmingham um, for the long term care of me and her once she was born.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and obviously that was just I remember for it took 2 or 3 weeks before we could get into the specialist in Birmingham, which is about 2 hours away. And I think for those 2 weeks it was a lot of tears, a lot of praying, and a lot of friends coming by and just offering their condolences. And it was kind of I think what scared me the most is like everybody, it was almost like everybody was mourning.
Well, you have to understand, we didn't know what spina bifida was.
I grew up in Laredo and I had a very good friend of mine who had spina bifida, and she was what the kind that she had. I'm not even sure what kind she had. Sadly, I'm no longer in contact with her, but she was completely and totally paralyzed from like the belly button down. So
Mm-hmm.
that was all I had to go on was her past case. So I did have some kind of familiarity with it. Like I knew what it was, generally speaking. Like I knew it was a problem with the spinal cord, and I knew that it caused paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest problem I had during that 2 or 3 weeks before we went to the specialist was, you know, a lot of researching, a lot of tears, a lot of praying, a lot of friends coming by and offering condolences, and it was almost like people were mourning her already. And I think that was, to me, that was the scariest thing because it was almost like they were mourning the loss of her, and she was still there, you
Right.
know. So that was probably the hardest thing for me anyway.
So I mean, that's she basically told the whole story. So I mean, it's that's what it was, or at least she had some exposure to it. I knew nothing about it, other than, you know, this was possibly going to be an issue. The only the only thing I had to lean on essentially was the visit with the specialist at the hospital, where they were able to sit down with us and just state, okay, well, these are some of the associated problems that might be the case. And they really did try. I think possibly on purpose now that I look back at it retrospect, but they did kind of give us a worst case scenario. Okay, she's probably not going to be able to do this or do that. Walking mobility is not going to be a thing. So they kind of gave us a lot of what she's not going to be able to do. And I look back at that and I think perhaps that was just a part of the process to make sure they gave us the worst, so that if the best case scenarios were possible, then it would be a certain delight. In any case, at the time, I just kind of situated with certain resolve to just kind of develop some understanding of this life that we were getting ready to embark on, and some of the challenges that we might face. And it's just been a journey of sort of discovery about these kinds of things, and other people, obviously, that have spina bifida or families or members affected by it. And then, of course, just trying to find the right path to have the most full life possible within that framework.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. You said your daughter is 6, right? So I'm 39, and my parents didn't know I had spina bifida until I was born. And yeah, but what you said the doctors told you, the worst case scenarios, sounds very similar to what they told my parents.
If you look at it now, it kind of makes me grateful because, and I know that sounds really weird, but let me explain that. I'm the kind of person, and I know my husband hates me for this, but I'm the kind of person that's like, I hope for the best, but I expect the worst. That way I'm never underprepared and I'm never disappointed. So I'm really grateful that they gave me like the worst case scenario because I prepared myself for it. And I think if they had given me the best case scenario, I don't think it would have mentally and emotionally and spiritually prepared me as much as I was for when she got here and everything that subsequently happened once she was here. So right. I'm really grateful that they kind of like gave us the worst case scenario imaginable.
Yeah, so then that way, if it's not as bad as they say, then it's like, okay, I was expecting a little bit worse than that. So so it's like, okay, like I can handle this because I was told it would be a lot worse than this. So, my parents were told that I wouldn't live past the age of 15. And that was 40 years ago now. Because they thankfully now the technology has improved so much that people can, you can see it now on the ultrasounds, and they have the fetal surgeries available. And, so it's amazing for me to see and hear stories of, children that were born in more recent years, to hear their experiences and, and what their parents were told and all of that. So it's really, really great to hear your story. So thanks for sharing that. You said other children, correct?
We have 5. He and I,
great.
And then he has 3 with his first wife. So we have
awesome.
6.
Awesome. Yeah. How does that? How is that with so many children?
For me, I love the fact of having 6 kids because nobody's ever like me too. It's just it sets you apart a little bit, and challenges you a little bit because you can't just automatically assume who did it. You really gotta do some detective work, so it keeps that sharp and all things. And as far as their relations together, they are normal and as healthy as any other siblings. They fight, they fuss, they love each other 5 minutes later, and all of that. And most importantly, I think all of them, and I guess through that lens, have sort of normalized Donna Faith as well and allowed her to understand and believe that she is just like the rest of them. So due to that, I think that's very healthy. It helps. She doesn't feel like a special needs case in our household or that sort of thing.
Not anymore, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, about everything, I think, but she's doing everything that she can do that they're doing, and all the fussing and the fighting, she gets all of the normal around here gets.
That's very true. And just like, I mean, because she's the baby, like she's the youngest out of all 6. So the older 5, they're like, well, I can pick on her and I can push her buttons and I can make her mad and, you know, I can take her stuff and I can manipulate her just like any other sibling. But when it comes to like her getting in trouble or, you know, something like that, or somebody else messing with her, they're like ravenous hyenas. They're like, oh, not my sister. You're not, you know, like they're.
Oh, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, and that's how it should be. And that's how we've kind of raised them from day one. Is she's the baby, and you need to be protective over her because, you know, she's the baby, not because she has a disability, but because she's the baby.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same way for my sister and I. Like nobody fought with me more than my sister. But the second somebody else would try, my sister was the first one to defend me. So
and that's how they are. Like they will actually defend her against us.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, we're the parents. You're not supposed to do this.
Wow. Yeah, that's fun. That has to be you know, an eventful household with 6. You know, it was just like I said, it was just me and my sister, but you know, so it was either one or the other who did something. It was pretty easy to figure out which one it was.
We're only on this podcast with you until we smell smoke. And at that point, we have to. Yeah.
Right. We have to end the meeting for all. Well,
I think a good deal from her, just in, you know, this is obviously their first experience with a special needs case, so to speak. So they've gained a great deal, I think, of real world education on what it's like to deal with someone with a disability, to understand that their disability doesn't define them, and that their soul, their character, their mental faculties and emotions are all intact. And they've learned a lot of great lessons just by having her in.
Yeah, I think that is a true, like a real thing. I was in a clubhouse room last night. Um, there were 5 of us in the room, so it was a very small room. And out of the 5, 4 of us who were talking, all 4 of us had different disabilities, and we were talking about our upbringing and what our social life was like, you know, growing up as kids. And I was able to share with them. I said, well, like all my first friends were my family because like it was just my sister and I who were around my age. I said, but I had a bunch of cousins. And I said, you know, with my cousins, we never talked about my spina bifida, but it was always, you know, like you said about your daughter, you know, uh, Arthur is going to the park with you. He's doing everything that you do. And he, you know, he walks a little slower than you. So you have to wait for him, but he's going. You know, he's going with you and you're going to take him.
And I don't think for a minute that everything is always perfect with them and they treat her with love. You know, we have, you know, they're a normal 11 and 8-year-old. We have issues with them. Like I remember this one, they were going to go out in the backyard and play. And I'm always telling them, they're all, you know, let's go out and play. And I'm like, sure, take your sister. And I remember they, you know, they got her walker outside and they got, you know, helped her down the stairs and get on her walker. And they went out into the yard to play. And she was like, well, wait for me. I want to play too. And my son turned around and was like, no, I don't really want you to play. You're too slow. And I was like, I was at the kitchen sink. So I was like right next to the back door anyway. So I heard it. And I was like, what? No. I stepped outside and she's just standing there pouting and they're running off into the backyard. So I took off after them and I grabbed them by their collars and I walked them up front and I was like, sit down. I was like, we're going to have a talk. And I was like, you know, how would you feel if you were told that you couldn't play because of something that you couldn't help? Something there's no fix for. It's not fair. It's not nice. It would hurt your feelings. You just hurt hers. Now you're going to apologize and you're going to come back inside. No more playing.
Now, nobody gets to go out. Look at that.
They've been helpful through the years, and not just due to our correction, but also due to their own arrivals at certain conclusions as a part of certain situations. They've developed empathy, and it's been a great lesson.
Yes, I think that is so big, the empathy part. I don't have any kids of my own, but I have a niece and a nephew, and so the empathy part is really big on what I'm trying to change. I want to see and have have people be more empathetic towards those who have disabilities, and uh, realize that we'd like to do all of the same things that everyone else likes to do, no matter our age. Uh, like I'm 39, so I like to go out when we're allowed to again. Um, I like to go out and go to concerts and go to sporting events and stuff, just like everyone else my age. And children like to play video games, and they like to go to amusement parks and swim and all that stuff, and I do too. And so it's really just to break down the barriers, I think, of the stereotypes that exist still in 2021 now, that that exist for people that have disabilities. I think that's a big big goal and a big lesson that a lot of people need to need to learn, and start caring and being more empathetic. I think that's a big piece of changing the conversation about disabilities. What advice would you give to parents who are faced with having a child who has a disability?
I'm sorry, but when I got the questions, this was the one I kind of focused on. I was like, oh, I want to answer this one.
Yeah.
My husband works very hard, and so he's out of the house a lot. So we do a lot of things in the house. And at first, she was like 6 weeks old, and we started having someone come in. It was called early intervention, but it was basically like rehab services for infants,
Right.
newborns, and they came in and they worked with her until she was 3, and then when she was 3, she was placed into a special school program for kids with handicaps. So during that time that early intervention was coming to the house, and we were doing like physical therapy and occupational therapy and all of this other stuff with her, I was always really protective and of her. She not primarily because of her disability that I didn't understand all that well, but because she's a girl and she's my baby and she's like the baby, So I was always doing for her. And I remember that her physical therapist that used to come for early intervention, and the physical therapist that she was seeing at the hospital, and all of her doctors and everybody just were constantly telling me, you gotta stop. You've got to listen to Wayne. You have got to let her do things on her own, because you're hindering her from progressing. And when she turned 3, and they were like, you need to put her in this school. Obviously, we can't force you to do that. And I sat on the stairs with that woman, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And I was like, nobody loves her like me, and nobody can do for her like me, and nobody understands her like me, and nobody, me. And she looked at me and she put her hand on my shoulder and she goes, you're really getting on my nerves. And I was so affronted. I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, you're hurting her more than you're helping her. And you're making this more about yourself and how it's hard for you. And you need to make it more about her and letting go and letting her be able to do what she needs to do and let her learn and let her. And it was almost like a slap across the face, because I was like, for 3 years, I've been thinking I've been doing this the right way, and that they were just being mean, and they didn't understand her, and they didn't understand her disability, which was their forte. They understood it better than I did, and it hurt, but it was an awakening that I was not being the best parent for her that I could. And that's when I was like, I didn't just like put on the training wheels and slowly let go. It was like I just dropped that sack of potatoes and let them fly wherever they did. I mean, I let go, and I let go with a vengeance. I was like, that's it. I'm done. And it was almost like an anger at myself, and I was like, she's got to be the best person she can be, and she can't be the best person she can be if mommy is too busy mommying the baby.
Wow. Yeah,
So
I think.
I was only going to say, I mean, she actually answered it perfectly, so I don't have anything to
My best advice
Yeah.
for anybody that's watching this and they're pregnant with somebody that they just found out may have a disability, and it doesn't even matter what the disability is. Not just, I'm legally blind, so I grew up with a disability, which is really shocking because that just means that I should have known better, and I didn't. But it doesn't matter what the disability is. The advice is still the same. They're a human being, and they're going to be fine, and you're going to be fine. But the most important thing in order to be fine is that letting go is essential to growth and progress and growing up, not just for the kid growing up, but for you as well. That was a hard lesson to learn. And it still is. Sometimes I still catch myself, wanting to do everything for her.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with the fact that she's disabled, or she can't, or she doesn't know how. That's my baby, and I just want to keep her a baby.
Well, she's 6, I'm 39, and my mom still hasn't stopped either. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for you, but and it's the thing of, there are just caring and giving people in this world. And I know for a fact my mom is definitely one of those people. And it's just it's like she can't help herself. If she's not helping someone, it's just like she's like, what do I do with myself? Yeah. And it's just, sometimes I'm like, okay, sure, fine, you can. But then other times, like I live in my apartment by myself. Other times I'm just like, no, like, please, no, I don't need you to, I don't need you to do that. No, thank you. Like, I appreciate it. But, if you could do this, that's great. But like, please leave this alone.
Yeah,
So
she has an attitude. Like, there are times where she'll be like, Mommy, can you? Or AJ, can you? Or Gracie, go get me. And I'm like, wait, no, we're not going to do that. You get over there and you do it yourself.
right, you can do it.
And then there are times where I'm like, let Mommy help you. And she's like, I can do it by myself. Okay.
Yeah, there's that fine line of of wanting help or asking for help and wanting help and not needing help. It's and it changes, it changes all the time. That's the funny part, because sometimes I do the same thing. And my mom's like, oh, well, no, I thought you said you didn't want, I thought you said you didn't want me to do that. Like, I didn't then, but now I would like for you to. Like, that would be great if you could. So, yeah, so I think it's just even like you said, having a disability yourself, it's like, you think you would have known better, but it's just like, no, it's who you are. And, it's a good quality to have, I think, because I find myself doing the same thing with, people I know, with friends, and just, just being there and being a caring person. It goes back to the empathy thing, I think, which is another fine line that can, go a little too far. And it's just like, oh no, I got to back away from that a little bit. So, but yeah, I really, definitely can identify with a lot of these points in the conversation that we're having. So just one last question that I have, which I end all of my my podcast episodes with, is what do you want the world to know about those who have disabilities? It can be one thing or two things or however many things you can think of.
I would say that for anybody that has disabilities, or what I would want the world to know, and obviously the world we're speaking to is those that probably don't have disabilities, is that always be positive concerning what people with disabilities or handicaps can do. And just because they may have circumstances that cause them to be creative in how they can do things, it doesn't mean that the restriction is necessarily a denial. You want to give them the space and the opportunity to be creative, which can be difficult. It can cause feelings of discomfort, insecurity, concern, worry, and the like. And the person with the disability, in many cases, understands that, but they request the same credit from you in investing in their personal equity as anybody else. They deserve the chance to try to overcome what are mostly limitations of society and the mind, not always within the person's ability. Give them a little time to think about it, to experiment, to try it out,
Right.
and you'll be surprised at what they can add to the world.
That's great.
Mine's a little different.
Mhm.
I mean, I totally agree with what he's saying, but I think the biggest thing that I would want to make the world aware of is, and I think this just comes with growing up, having a disability as well, and now being an adult with a disability. I mean, let's just call it how it is. People are afraid of what they don't understand, and fear makes people act irrationally.
Yes.
So, what I would want the world to know is don't stare and make assumptions and whisper behind people's back. If you don't understand and you see somebody that has a disability, we are totally fine with you coming to us and asking questions. We want you to know what's going on. We don't want you to make assumptions. We want you to be educated and informed so that you no longer fear it. And so your actions are no longer uncalled for and irrational. The world would be a better place if people were just kind, were just understanding and empathetic. And like I said, just kind, just be a kind person. And if you don't understand, or even if you're just curious, just come and ask. That's all we want, is for you to come and ask. Because if you think about it, just coming to us and asking us about it is a way of including us. And
Right.
ultimately, most of us are always being excluded because people think we can't. And that's another assumption. So just come and ask, and you'll educate yourself, and you'll be more informed, and ultimately you'll be a kinder person, and there will be less misunderstandings and more education. And I think that ultimately would cut back on a lot of stigma when it comes to the disabled community.
Anything you can understand, you can help defend with credibility. So
Yes. I loved both of your answers for that because it's so true that for me, I go out a lot by myself, not so much these days, but I go to the store a lot by myself, and um, there are a lot of times where people will just stare at me, and it's like they're not sure if they want to ask if I need help, or because they see that I'm by myself, number one. So that gives, I think, two impressions, that like, oh, he's by himself, or like, oh wow, look at that. He's doing everything by himself. It's either like the the plus side or the minus side of it all. And it's they're like staring, and it's like, do I ask him if he needs help? Because he looks like he has it all going together and going on, but the inside of him wants to ask. And I never mind if people ask me if I need help. And if I do, I will gladly say, yes, I need that on the top shelf. And can you get me 2 of them or or whatever it is. I gladly will let you know when I need help. And I've gotten a lot better. I usually would shy away from asking for help. But, if I do see people that that are close by and I need something, I might like, hey, before you leave, can you get that for me? So it's really, but I think it's a tough thing. And I think what people, like you said, what people don't know, they're afraid of it. And it's just really just, just have the conversation and break the ice and ask people, what is your story? I saw someone say that, instead of saying like, what's wrong with you? Like ask them, what is your story? And, how did you become a wheelchair user? Just something to start the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. But something I think, we've been spending this whole recording talking to people about the disabled community, but something I would like to say to the disabled community, because I've been guilty of this myself. If we don't change, other people won't change as well. So if somebody comes up to you and just says, would you mind if I asked what your story was? Or, I see you're struggling a little bit. Can I give you a little bit of help? There's so many of us that are just so prideful that it's just like, I don't need your help. Or, well, it's none of your business. If we got out of that mindset and we put our pride aside and we could just try to educate instead, because we're so used to being persecuted or just kind of pushed off to the side or segregated as somebody different. We do that to others as well. I'm guilty of it myself. Pride will get the better of you, and you continue to segregate yourself, or you push other people aside because, well, they're not disabled and they don't get it. So if we could just change our own mindset, that not everybody that comes to us and wants to know what our story is or what our problem is or why we were born like that, or do you need some help, whatever they come, and of course there's different ways of coming to somebody. If somebody walked up to me and goes, what's wrong with your eyes? Yeah, that's, it's all about how you put yourself out there and the verbiage that you use and the tone of voice in which you use. But not everybody that comes to you and asks you a question is doing it negatively or in a derogatory fashion. If we could change ourselves, because there are so many of the disabled community that is so prideful that we push back when no pushback is deserved.
Yes, so like not everything is an attack.
Exactly. Not everything is an attack.
Yeah, not everything is an attack and not everything is negative. Just, and again, like you said, I always say it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
So it's, like you said, if someone said, well, what's wrong with your eyes? Like, yeah, that causes, a little defense. And, I would come back at you a little hard. But if someone is genuinely, like, wow, like, you seem to be getting around pretty well. Like, like what, how long have you been using a wheelchair? Like, oh, all my life. Then they're really interested, like, oh, okay. So I don't mind the conversations, but it's the approach and not what you say, but how you say it to people, I think is what, we can be mindful of. And then, as you mentioned as well, I think that's a really big thing for those of us living with disabilities. Like, not everything is an attack. It's not meant to be offensive. And it's just, some people just don't know how to ask the questions. So I think we all can, again, going back to empathy, and I think we all can be a little more empathetic to everybody, and just extend a little more kindness and grace to everybody. And just, but yeah, we have to be the ones within the disabled community. We have to be the ones to help make the change that we wish to see. I think that's a really big thing.
It's all about understanding that essentially everybody's disabled. Some are just physically seen, and others are emotionally disabled, mentally disabled, financially disabled. I mean, everybody is disabled in some way or another. And I think disabilities are God's way of just reminding us that we all need each other. to make connections. And for those that are physically disabled, it's important to understand that it's okay to be vulnerable while developing your own strength. And for those who are not physically disabled, it's important to remember that there are those out there that could use the advantages that you have in your physical abilities and strengths and whatever that might be. And again, it just adds to the great circle of life. And if we can have that understanding, then the communities will work well together and produce a better world.
And I think that is the perfect way to end this episode. That was that was great. I totally agree with you on all of that. It was really that was really good. Good way to just wrap everything up.
I looked at my teleprompter. I've been working on it.
I need to get a teleprompter. That's what I need. But thank you both so much for joining me today and taking time out of your day to have this conversation with me, because I really believe that this is important, that we share our stories, and because it's even though I said it before, like spina bifida is a common common disability. It's like one of the most common disabilities that there are. But there are still people that have not heard of it, and people that don't know what it is. And I think that everybody's story is different. So I can tell 100 stories about myself, and I can talk to 15 or 20 other people who have spina bifida, and their story can be similar in some parts and totally different in the other. So I appreciate you both taking the time out to have this conversation with me, and I will definitely be in touch. And so I hope you all have a great evening and take care, and I'll be in touch with you all soon.
Thank
We'll be glad
you.
to be in touch. Have a great one.